This is Ireland, the Emerald Isle, the Celtic Tiger, a country with one of the world's highest GDPs, standing at an impressive $100,000 per person. Yet while these official figures paint a picture of wealth and prosperity, the reality is quite different. With a cost of living crisis, housing shortages, protests, rising immigration, and an economy heavily influenced by foreign powers, the once powerful Celtic Tiger is in trouble, and this should scare Europe. But what's really going on? Welcome to Living History. Ireland's modern story picks up in the late 20th century. After decades of economic struggles post-independence in 1922 and failed protectionist policies in the 1930s, Ireland finally turned a corner in 1958. Prime Minister Sean Lemass and economist T.K. Whitaker introduced open economic policies, reducing trade barriers and encouraging foreign investment. The pivotal moment came in 1973, when Ireland joined the European Economic Community, diversifying trade beyond the UK. Coupled with a low corporate tax rate that currently stands at just 12.5%, these reforms attracted significant direct foreign investment and ushered in the Celtic Tiger era, a period from the mid-1990s to the late 2000s, characterized by rapid economic growth. Ireland's GDP skyrocketed, and the country became one of the world's wealthiest nations. Unemployment rates plummeted, wages rose, and there was a construction boom that reshaped the skylines of cities like Dublin. However, beneath this veneer of prosperity, there were hidden cracks. The boom was heavily reliant on foreign direct investment and the presence of multinational corporations like Apple, Google, and Pfizer. These companies were drawn to Ireland's favourable tax environment, but their profits often didn't trickle down to the average Connor or Aidan. Just take a look at this. In 2015, Ireland's GDP growth spiked to an astonishing 25.2%, largely due to multinational corporations shifting their assets to Irish shores. This phenomenon, humorously dubbed leprechaun economics, meant that although a lot of money was coming into the country, it was not finding its way into the pockets of the average citizen. To highlight this, just consider the disparity between the impressive GDP figures and the reality on the ground today. While the GDP per capita in 2024 is estimated at nearly $100,000, the median household income is hovering around just $40,000, illustrating a significant gap between corporate spreadsheets and economic reality for the average citizen. What's more, the influence of multinational corporations on Ireland's policymaking and economic strategy creates a business environment tailored to corporate needs rather than local well-being. This situation exacerbates income inequality and challenges the sustainability of economic growth reliant on such corporations. However, there is another crisis brewing underneath all this. As quaint as cobblestone streets may look, they lead to some of the least affordable homes in Europe, especially tough on the younger Irish. In 2023, Ireland managed to construct only 32,695 housing units and fell short of the mark needed to keep roofs over heads without breaking the bank. Despite a small spike in building, the real villains, the lack of state investment in social housing and knotty planning regulations, remain at large, keeping Ireland in the throes of one of Europe's most severe housing shortages. But how severe are we talking? Well, let's paint a picture of Dublin, where the average rent hits around €2,300 a month. That's a full month's take-home pay of a newly qualified teacher gone, just like that. Imagine budgeting your life around such figures. Now, if you think that's rough, it gets worse. The high rate of tenant evictions and a rental market dominated by short-term lets have further diminished the availability of long-term rental housing. Over the past 3 years alone, 30,000 households have been evicted, more than during the peak years of the Great Famine. This situation is driving up homelessness and forcing a demographic shift as young adults delay starting families due to housing insecurity. As a result, the population has not rebounded to the peak levels seen before the Great Famine of the 1840s. But that's not all. To add insult to injury, the stringent mortgage lending rules from the Central Bank of Ireland, which restrict borrowing to 4 times a buyer's gross income, combined with high property prices, have made it increasingly difficult for first-time buyers and young people to enter the property market. As a result, many find themselves either stuck living with their parents or considering emigration as a feasible alternative. Adding to the complexity, Ireland has seen a notable rise in illegal immigration in recent years. Asylum applications increased by 65% in 2023 alone, placing additional pressure on an already strained housing market and social services. This surge has not only complicated Ireland's economic landscape, but also fueled political debates. Far-right groups have capitalized on this issue, using it to stoke fears and xenophobia, leading to protests in several cities. The government's response has been mixed, with measures aimed at tightening border controls and accelerating the process of asylum claims. But these efforts have not fully addressed the underlying challenges. What's more, recent fiscal measures and policies have tended to favor wealthier segments of the population, widening the gap between rich and poor. One of the most polarizing examples is the inheritance tax thresholds. Adjustments to these have allowed wealthier families to pass on larger estates with reduced tax burdens, disproportionately benefiting high net worth individuals. This issue is further compounded by the tax reliefs provided to real estate investment trusts, REITs, which have contributed to rising property prices and rents, making housing increasingly unaffordable for lower income groups. But this widening inequality is not just a socio-economic concern, but also a political one, as it influences public sentiment, policy decisions, and of course, votes. As a result, Ireland now faces a crossroads. The reliance on multinational corporations and the resulting economic facade have created a situation where the apparent prosperity masks serious challenges that threaten Ireland's economy and future. And this is a big problem for Europe. You see, Ireland's economic instability would have a ripple effect across the European Union. As one of the EU's fastest-growing economies, any significant downturn in Ireland would disrupt trade and investment flows within the bloc. Furthermore, the model of attracting multinational corporations with low taxes has been a double-edged sword. It creates economic dependency on these corporations, and any policy changes from other countries to reclaim their tax base could lead to capital flight, destabilizing not just Ireland, but potentially other EU economies like the Netherlands, Luxembourg, and Malta that rely on similar strategies. Moreover, the rising inequality and housing crises in Ireland are already fueling social unrest and political instability, reflecting broader European trends. The recent EU elections in Ireland saw significant gains for populist and far-right parties, indicating widespread dissatisfaction with the current state of affairs. This growing support for populist movements could further destabilize the country and challenge the EU's cohesion and its policies on economic integration and migration. And it is this political shift, fueled by an ever-growing wealth gap, housing crisis, and social frustration, that should really scare the EU, as it will lead to an even more divided Europe, with member states adopting conflicting economic and migration policies, weakening the EU's collective strength. The result? A fractured Europe would struggle even more than now to tackle common issues like inequality and immigration, making the continent more vulnerable to both internal discord and external threats. To find out more about why Germany's economic collapse should scare Europe, check out my next video, linked here.